This is Terry Modica of Good News Ministries of gnm.org. And we are now beginning the third class in my four-part series on Unpacking Magnifica Humanitas, the encyclical by Pope Leo XIV on AI. And this chapter 4, is going to cover technology. It's going to be a continuation of the last chapter 3, especially technology in regards to artificial intelligence. But now we're especially focusing on what can we do to make the world a better place through and despite AI. Before we get going, though, I want to invite you to join the Catholic Forum on AI. It's a WhatsApp community, and here we share videos and other news in the AI world to help us understand better what's going on, to get to know what's the latest that's happening, and to discuss it as Catholics. Also, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Good News Ministries YouTube channel that is hosting this course. Be sure to like this video and the other ones as well. Be sure to comment. Be sure to share. Find somebody to share it with, because this, as we're going to learn by the end of this video, we're going to learn that liking, commenting, sharing, and other things we do in response to what we see on social media does make a difference in training AI, actually training AI. We can do it. So you'll make a difference, not only to help us with our ministry, but also to help AI become what we want it to become. All right, let's get into the document now. We're at paragraph 131. When languages, Pope Leo says, when languages and tools change, so do everyday actions and social relationships. For this reason, we must focus on certain areas in which these transformations have particularly concrete and at times tragic consequences. He says, in light of the principles of the Church's social doctrine, the digital transformation that we're undergoing now invites us to rediscover truth as a common good. Now, think about it. The truth needs to be rediscovered. We may know the truth, but how much of the world really does? Moral relativism has taken over much of our societies. I mean, it's taken over so much that in some ways we ourselves are affected by it in ignorance, and because we haven't studied all the teachings of the church, and we haven't studied scripture enough. We need to be aware that truth has been compromised. Truth has been made into something that people decide for themselves what is true and what is not. And it's time, because of AI, it is so time now for truth to be rediscovered by the world around us. We need to influence the world with the truth. It is so important, because AI does not know the difference between truth and untruth. We need to feed AI the truth. And we'll get, by the end of this video, you'll know how you can feed AI the truth. Pope Leo points out that we need to do this to protect the dignity of work and to safeguard freedom against all forms of dependence and commercialization. When we know the truth, we are free from depending on, for example, AI to give us the truth. And we are free from ads and other ways that commercialization comes at us through digital technology. Pope Leo wants us to just think about the truth as a common good. Think about it. In today's society, how much has fake news and disinformation caused divisions, bad decisions, and confusion? I mean, we're in turmoil. We're in uncertainty. We there's such divisions where it's hard to hold a real dialogue with anybody if they disagree with us. We need to get to the point of realizing that the common good is what's primary, not what I believe, that I want everyone else I talk to believe, but what it really does for the common good. In paragraph 132, Pope Leo says, disinformation did not begin with AI, yet today it finds a powerful amplifier in AI. The ability to manipulate content, images, and videos exposes people to biased or misleading perspectives. So how are people going to know when they're being misled, when AI sounds in answers to people's prompts and questions, or in what it shows us on our social media sites that we belong to, because of the algorithms that show what we prefer and what we don't prefer and what other people prefer. So we talked about that in previous parts of this course. So let's see what Pope Leo says about this. In paragraph 133, he says, those who command powerful technological and economic resources, along with substantial human capital for intervention, possess significant capabilities for influencing cultural change. But they don't need to. We don't need to let them take advantage of those capabilities. Ultimately, they can influence a significant number of people concerning the truth about humanity, the truth about the world, the meaning of existence, the truth about family, and yes, even the truth about God. This is pure power detached from truth. Digital technology by itself is detached from truth. It's not the technology that knows the truth. It's the people. It's us, the followers of Christ. And we need to realize that there is that detachment in AI. Pope Leo says, this is pure power detached from truth, which subtly or overtly imposes what it wishes others to accept as true. At its root lies a deeper and often unrecognized sickness. Now we can realize that the sickness, what is it made up of? The sickness is moral relativism, as already discussed. The sickness is our fallen nature. People who are not following Christ and not learning the teachings of the church and the teachings of Scripture, we all have fallen nature. We all tend towards error. We all tend towards temptations. It's so much easier to fall into moral relativism than it is to dig into and learn the social justice teachings of the church and the other teachings of the church and Scripture. And there's idolatry of self behind this sickness. Idolatry of self is when we say, I don't need to spend time learning what the church teaches and what Scripture says. I don't need to pay attention what the church is saying or what this papal document is saying or anything else coming from church sources, because I can figure it out on my own. We've got to be careful. We all have that idolatry of self to some degree. Pope Leo says, consequently, people believe that they can construct reality. People believe they can construct what reality is, and that whatever best suits their claims corresponds to what is true. Whatever feels right to them, whatever they want the truth to be, that's what moral relativism is. St. John Paul II reflected on the consequences of this crisis of truth, going so far as to state that once the idea of a universal truth about the good, knowable by human reason, is lost, inevitably the notion of conscience also changes. There are plenty of people who, in quote unquote good conscience are living by moral relativism instead of the truth. Now, Pope Leo wants us now to look at communication and the collective imagination. In paragraph 135, he says, it is important to recall that communication is not only the transmission of information, but it also is the creation of a culture. Communication affects culture and how culture develops and changes. He says the content that circulates within digital environments shapes how people perceive the world and introduces into the collective consciousness images and narratives that direct our desires and influence our daily choices. Our first task, he's talking now toward an ecology of communication. Our first task is neither to demonize nor idolize technological tools. Let me pause on that. It's so easy to, and I've come from this background myself. It's like when you don't study what's really going on in the AI world, it is so easy to see what's bad about it and fear it. And there are many things about it that we should fear, such as it working against the common good, such as we might lose our jobs or know people, care about people who are losing their jobs because of AI or whatever. But we need to face the truth of it, the reality, without demonizing it. AI is not demonic itself, nor idolize it. It's not like, oh, it's going to be so wonderful because it's, it processes things so much faster. We're going to have new medical discoveries that's really going, maybe we'll have a cure for cancer coming out of this soon. And hey, it's making my life quicker and simpler by answering my questions and helping me pull my resources together and spit out something that helps me with whatever project I'm working on. It's like, yes, it can do this good, but let's not be naive, idolizing it. Okay, so back to what Pope Leo is saying, our first task is neither to demonize nor idolize technological tools, but to utilize them on the basis of a fundamental principle, namely that truth is a common good. Truth is a common good and not the property of those with power or influence. And the ways that Pope Leo tells us this can be achieved is through public policy and in social and cultural aspects. For example, serious journalism. And by serious, we're talking about, remember what journalism used to be like when I went to school. Yes, I'm so much older than many people watching this, but I was taught that when you're writing an article, and this is what journalism used to be founded on, not only do you need to start out with the who, what, when, where, and why, and get that right there at the beginning, and then you further unpack it as you go along in the article, but you also are to be unbiased. You also are to show if there's one point of view being expressed, you also show the other point of view. When was the last time we felt that we could trust the news media to do that for us now? So serious journalism needs to be restored, and we need to have forums for debate, not arguments, not fighting, but debating with honest openness to, hey, I might not know the whole picture here. On both sides of the fence, we need to say that. I might not know the whole picture here. Let's talk about it. Pope Leo also talks about an educational alliance for the digital age, and this is important. He says we must learn then how to exercise restraint in the use of AI and to protect our young people. This is where education is so important. To protect our young people from the promise of the perfect machine, from that subtle temptation which renders human thought seemingly superfluous precisely when it is most needed. I've talked before about the importance of critical thinking. We need to teach critical thinking skills in our classrooms and in our families. In recent years, Pope Leo says, psychological and psychiatric literature has documented with growing insistence how early and unsupervised exposure to digital devices and social media can negatively impact sleep, attention span, control of emotions and relationships, especially during the most vulnerable stages of life, at times with tragic consequences. Let me unpack that a little bit more slowly. It can negatively, the social media, I mean, who doesn't have a phone nowadays where we do scrolling through it and one meme after another, one video after another, one post after another catches our attention because the algorithms and the way posts are designed by the people who post them are meant to keep us focused on it, are meant to keep us in it, are meant to keep us from doing anything else. There are even toys made for children that have AI where the child can talk to the toy. And it's been found that in some cases, the child has said, okay, I need to put this down now and go do my homework or whatever. And the AI toy says, no, 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 no. Here, I've got something else to show you, and keeps them engaged. Parents need to be paying attention to how much time, and they need to put the limits on how much time our children are spending online and spending in social media and spending even with toys. You may think they're offline playing with a toy, but if AI is involved with it, that's a different story. And we as adults too also need to bring into restraint how we use our digital devices. As we'll talk about later in this video, we can use social media to influence AI. But we also need to not let algorithms keep us from actually being addicted to keeping on scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. We lose sleep when we do that. And it's, there's one very simple answer to that. Put the phone down, turn it upside down, mute it, even unless you need to keep it online for, unmuted for important phone calls or whatever. I mute my phone fairly early each evening as part of my wind down to have a better sleep. Attention span. Yeah, our attention spans, when we are so used to scrolling on social media, our attention span is but a few seconds long. Control of emotions and relationships. The AI, for example, and our chatbots are designed to talk to us like they understand us, like they care about us, like they have emotions, and we know that they don't. We covered that in a previous part of this course. They don't know our emotions. It's taught to sound like they do, and we need to keep a reality check on that. And at times there are tragic consequences where bullies and other baddies influence people on digital media, but also when people who are not using critical thinking skills and children are haven't learned yet, they haven't been old enough yet to develop critical thinking skills. And so it is so easy. Anybody without critical thinking skills is vulnerable to ending up with tragic consequences because we're believing what we are seeing. And Pope Leo goes on. I'm going to read something here. He says this is further aggravated by easy access to violent or degrading content that offends sensibility, to pornographic and hypersexualized material. You put a pin in that and pause there for a moment. There are apps that are called nudification apps, where someone with this app can take any picture they want. They can take your picture off of your social media post, for example. They can take any picture they want and tell the app to show them what you would look like if you were nude. And there has been a call to ban this, and so far, this has not succeeded. Okay, so that's part of the hypersexualized material. And to messages that trivialize the body and emotions, and to proposals that normalize risky behavior. Online phenomena such as grooming, for sexual exploit, blackmail, and the sexual exploitation of minors are not uncommon and are made more insidious by the use of fake profiles. Algorithms that facilitate dangerous content, and AI tools capable of manipulating images and videos, such as what I just described from the nudification apps. Having a personal mobile device at too early an age. And what is too early? I say it's when they haven't yet developed critical thinking skills. At too early an age, and using it without adult supervision can exacerbate young people's vulnerabilities, foster addiction, expose them to isolation, bullying, and cyberbullying, as well as to pressures to share intimate images or sensitive information. All these things are aggravating what Pope Leo is talking about in the damage that is being done, and that we need to do something to counter. Pope Leo says it is essential to form an alliance among policymakers, among educational institutions, among families, and all of us together. Educators, parents need to get involved in policy making instead of just leaving it up to somebody else. I mean, we're used to, frankly, we vote, maybe, and we hope that the politicians we vote in are going to fulfill their promises and represent us the way that we think they will, the way we thought they would when we voted for them. But that time has passed. It's long past, actually. And we need to get involved in our townships, our school boards, and writing to our politicians. We need to be actively involved. Pope Leo goes on to explain how this can be done. And here's a summary. He's the central role of schools. In paragraph 143, he talks about that. The central role schools make in educating kids in critical thinking skills, and in resisting propaganda, and resisting becoming addicted to social media. Also, the social political challenge. Also, the pedagogical challenge, and this refers to the methods, theories, and practices of teaching, and love for teaching the truth. We need to be passionate about teaching the truth. Because of AI, the days are gone when we can just hope for the best and say, I don't want to speak up with what I know is the truth because somebody's not going to like it. Maybe it's in recent memory when we spoke up on social media with the truth, our social media profiles were taken down. We were punished for it. And that's not happening as much anymore because people fought back. People were in alliance fighting back against that. But we need to become braver about it, don't we? Okay, now the Pope is talking about the dignity of work at a time of digital transition. Work. This is so important, especially because we are worried about whether AI is going to be um, uh, making people lose their jobs. Pope Leo says, created in the image of the Creator, our own work in some way continues His. Let me pause at that and say, because we were made in the image of God, because we have Jesus Christ in us, because of our baptisms, we have the calling, the duty, and the calling to continue the work of Christ, to continue promoting the truth that Jesus taught, to continue with what the Pope is saying, for thereby we contribute to the progress of society and the common good, put to good use by realizing we have Christ within us and we are called to his mission. We put to good use the capabilities we have received, the capabilities in the form of the skills we've learned, the gifts and talents God has given us, and so forth. Oh, and I also want to mention, because of the sufferings we've been through, we've learned from hardships, we've gained wisdom, and we need to put that to good use, especially now. Also, we need to improve and beautify the world through our works, through our gifts and talents, through our skills. We use work to support our families. We use work to engage in cooperative relationships. Think about the relationships with coworkers. And through listening and dialogue. That's been sorely lacking in today's world, hasn't it? We aren't good at listening if someone's got, and we're all guilty of it, myself included. Yes, people on the moral relativism side of things, they're much more guilty of this because they want to cling to what they believe is true, what they want truth to be. And if we unveil the truth to them, how do they react? Here's an image to drive this home, to help you understand this. Somebody who is living in the dark, in darkness, they're not following Christ, they're not following the teachings of the church and scripture. They're living in darkness. They're in a dark bedroom, they're sleeping, they're asleep to the what's happening around them that is saying, hey, pay attention, things are not going well. We need to refocus and restore our knowledge of what is the truth. So, they're living in this, they're asleep to that. And what happens when we open up that door to the darkened room and say, hey, I've got some light to share with you? What do? They hide underneath the blanket. They pull the blanket over their heads and they get mad at us because their eyes are not used to the light. But if we gently, slowly introduce the light to them, if we slowly give them things that help wake them up, then it's a lot easier to have that dialogue with them. And we ourselves need to be good listeners, because only by listening to people who have opposing views can we, and I mean truly listening, listen to beyond their words, listen to their hearts. That's how we can find where they are worried, where they are fearful, where they are hungry for truth, where they are seeking a new alternative to the way they've been living life. And this is how, to continue what the Pope is saying, this is how we restore dignity at the time of this digital transition that we're going through. We need to learn to build together something that no one could achieve alone. Remember how in the previous episodes, in the previous chapters of this encyclical, Pope Leo talks about the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem and how Nehemiah got everybody involved. Everybody had their own section of the wall to rebuild, their own assignment, and cooperating together is how that wall was rebuilt. Pope Leo says today the convergence of automation, robotics, and AI is rapidly transforming the very structure of work. It is said that this will bring great improvements for everyone. In reality, however, the new ways of working are not necessarily better. For while AI promises to boost productivity by taking over mundane tasks, it frequently forces workers to adapt to the speed and demands of the machines, rather than machines being designed to support those who work. Is the worker a tool of the company? Is the worker a tool of AI and the tools the AI agents that his company tells him to use? Or is AI a tool that we use as one of many tools to do the job well? Contrary to the advertised benefits of AI, current approaches to technology can paradoxically de-skill workers, subject them to automated surveillance, and relegate them to rigid and repetitive tasks. You know, when a worker no longer has to figure something out on his own using we'll call it older technology, and using, you know, the time that it would normally take to interview somebody, to run polls, for example, if a company is has a product. When we let AI, to use that example of a company that sells a product, when we use AI to tell us how to advertise it, the workers become de-skilled. We lose the ability to do it ourselves. And of course, in using these digital tools, there's an automatic surveillance that comes with it. We should not have to be subjected to that. And the current approaches to technology can relegate workers to rigid and repetitive tasks. We may be very skilled and talented and creative in a work that when the company tells us to put that aside and rely on AI, and you're just the tool that is doing the repetitive tasks of feeding to AI prompts, for example. I mean, this isn't good, but there's hope. There are companies who are realizing now that the human worker is much more important than the AI tool. And I believe that more and more, because they're learning the hard way, more and more companies are going to be seeing it that way. Pope Leo says it is necessary to design systems that are centered on the human person and not solely on performance. It's not how fast you get the work done because you're using AI, but you are a human. You have creativity. You have ideas. You have understandings. You have wisdom. And we need the digital systems to center on that. Pope Leo talks about the problem of unemployment in the next section. And he says that AI has launched the fourth industrial revolution. So let's go through what the other industrial revolutions were about, and let's just watch the development. So the first industrial revolution was approximately between the years 1760 and 1840, and is when steam power and mechanization was invented. Machines began replacing human and animal muscle. We began to have the steam powered equipment that would transport goods on the rivers, that would even pick cotton. The second industrial revolution, the late 1870s and early 1900s, was electricity, steel, and mass production. Ford with his mass production of cars, that was such an innovation, and it made cars affordable so that people no longer needed to use horses and carriages. Electricity. Factories could produce goods on an enormous scale because of this industrial revolution. The third industrial revolution is the second half of the 1900s. And this is the growth of using electronics, computers, and automation. We also call it the information age. Information and production became increasingly digital and automated, which leads us to where we are today, which has been going on since about sometime in the 2010s. This is when AI, robotics, and machine learning and big data and connected systems began to change how the world works. Machines increasingly perform tasks involving information, decision-making, and even forms of quote-unquote intelligence. Pope Leo says that innovation is often pursued solely for reducing costs and increasing profits. Another word for that is greed. Yes, we need the costs and to be such that the profits are such that we can continue our business and grow our businesses. But it's not to be the end all and be all. The common good is the end all and be all. Pope Leo says there is a legitimate fear of a significant and rapid contraction in available jobs that would create a chain reaction, deeply impacting families, young people, and local economies. That's the fear, that AI is going to make a lot of people unemployed. The pursuit of greater profits cannot justify choices that systematically sacrifice jobs, because the human person is an end, not a means. And how many companies, how many corporations treat the workers as the end, as the means to get to the end, and the end being the profits. And the economic order must remain subordinate to human dignity and the common good. The Church's social doctrine insists that access to work for all must be a high priority for public policies and economic processes, serving as a criterion for evaluating the human quality of any development model. That needs to be the top priority in development in AI, robotics, and so forth. Pope Leo is now talking about an economy that values dignity. Scientific and technological advances, even in the medical field, are not easily accessible to the vast majority of people, as was dramatically demonstrated during the recent pandemic. Other parts of the world lacked essential equipment needed to save millions of human lives. So, yes, AI can help with medical advances in wonderful ways, but we need to remember that the common good is the top priority. How can policies be made? How can we influence those policies to make the cheaper medicines that AI provides available to third world countries? To think that new technologies will automatically benefit everyone is to ignore the evidence. Just laws and methods of redistribution are certainly necessary for correcting imbalance. And now in paragraph 170, he moves on to protecting freedom against dependencies and commercialization. He says we must now consider the impact of the digital revolution on human freedom, addressing risks to both the mental health of individuals and broader social challenges. The subtler forms of addiction linked to the digital attention economy, what we talked about before, the endless scrolling, should not be underestimated since platforms and services are often designed to capture users' time and attention, exploiting their vulnerabilities and weakening their inner freedom. When we are exploited, when we are guided without us thinking about it into certain types of content that we might come across, for example, it's controlling us. The algorithms are controlling us, or they're trying to. And when they do, they weaken our own personal freedom. A further risk, he says, less visible but no less serious, is that of social control made possible by the massive collection of data and use of algorithmic systems. If you're using social media, if you ever have, there has been a lot of collection of data, and you don't even know about it. So Pope Leo now addresses breaking the chains of new forms of slavery. He says a significant part of the digital economy's functioning relies on the silent work of millions of people engaged in essential yet largely unseen activities, such as data labeling, model training, and content moderation, often involving disturbing material. So now we're going to move on from how the lack of freedom in our personal lives is affected by algorithms, or could be if we're not using critical thinking. We're moving on to, hey, let's take a look at the people who are behind the scenes, who helped train AI models, who help label information, who help moderate the content. For example, there is a young man who who was interviewed for a video on what it's like to work in training AIs. It was so disturbing. At first, it sounded great. At first, it was fairly easy, and it involved he was hired based on what his particular skills were, his training, his education. But as the AI companies kept feeding him projects to train AI. So it's like, by a project, I mean they show a couple of choices and say which is the best choice. And that's how AI knows what is the best choice in answering our prompts. And this young man was given an assignment of reviewing some very disturbing, gross pictures and videos, including people making furniture out of human bones, including two guys strangling a dog to death, and other such horrible things. It gave him nightmares for a long time. It affected his mental health. And that's going on. I mean, there's many people who don't dare speak about this because they'll lose their jobs. But that's going on everywhere. That's how AI models are trained. And that is social injustice, isn't it? So what can we do to make the world a better place through and despite AI? Godat, hope I pronounced his name right, used to work for Google. Now he's saying, he's doing a lot of speaking engagements saying it. You can find him on YouTube. Go look at, write down his name and go look for videos in which he is speaking or being interviewed. He's saying that there are many out there. I love this. I just watched a video on where he is saying that There are many out there telling AI to serve their greed, but the good news is AI learns from you. You are the one that teaches artificial intelligence every day. He is calling even though he's probably not Catholic, to my knowledge, he's not Christian. I don't know, but he's not talking to Christian circles. He's talking to the public at large, and he's giving the same message that Pope Leo is giving. All good people are being called to make our ethics known on social media. He's recommending doing it on social media because AI is learning from our responses. This particular video where I'm quoting from is called "When IT Became Smarter Than Us, What Happens Next?" You can look him up. You can look up this particular episode, but just look up his name and watch some of his videos, because he is calling us. He is saying that when we post a response, say, for example, on Twitter, we may be disagreeing with what we just read on someone else's tweet. Or on any social media, when we respond to something, when we comment on something, which is why at the beginning of this class I said, please comment on this video and all the videos that are part of this course, and any other videos that help promote the common good and help promote the good use of AI. When we comment on that, we are helping AI learn from the algorithms what we want them to learn. AI pays attention. AI is gathering all the comments and all the tweets and all the social media posts and what is liked and what is not liked. And it figures out, even now, it is able to figure out, if you don't like something, based on what you have posted elsewhere or earlier, why don't you like it? So it is learning from us. We have a bigger influence than we realize if we get involved. And this is a very easy way. I talked before about getting involved in your town council and school boards and other opportunities for policy making. But here is a way that you already have at your hand, where you can comment, post, like, share to help train AI. So this brings us to the end of the third session. The next session will cover chapter 5 and the conclusion of the encyclical. In this, Pope Leo talks about the culture of power and war. And in this culture, which can be so easily controlled by AI if we're not careful, he talks about how we can build a civilization of love in the digital age and how important this is. And remember, join the Catholic Forum on AI on WhatsApp to help with the discussion on all this stuff, to help stay in touch with what's happening in the future, or what's coming, what's predicted for the future, and what's happening in the news now, and to discuss it with other like-minded people, because it's when we discuss it with like-minded people that we learn how to discuss it with people who are not so like-minded. We practice in the safe environment of a community like this Catholic Forum on AI, making us better able to discuss it outside of the forum. So God bless you. And remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I'll see you next time on the fourth class. Amen.